what's up guys? Today I am going to explain to you a little bit about traveling in Japan. Japan is probably one of my favorite countries, if not my most favorite country of all time, at least visiting too. And I want to be able to help you guys out when you travel over there. As far as my background there, I've traveled there 3 times now. I studied there when I was in undergrad for about 4 months, and then I've been back in Japan about twice now since after that. So I think I've gathered enough knowledge to be able to at least help you guys out if you decide to travel to Japan. So let's just get to it, and let's go start off with some of the easy ones. First off is the currency. The currency there is the Japanese yen. My typical go-to conversion is really 100 to 1. It really revolves around that. So whatever it is in yen, I always just say just divide it by 100, and I can typically figure it out how much it would cost in the US. While we're still on the subject of currency, Japan is still a very cash-heavy or cash-oriented society. There are a few places that accept credit cards. And by a few places, I mean most major retailers, most major restaurants and food chains such as McDonald's, Starbucks. Convenience stores I've found do accept credit cards as well. The best suggestion I can give is really just ask when you arrive at a particular store or restaurant. Number 2 is very broad. It's what to eat. I'm not gonna tell you what to eat or what you want to eat, but when I talk to my friends, they're always saying, oh, how's the sushi or how's the ramen? Yes, those are extremely delicious in Japan. But I'd say really, open your mind up and just, don't limit yourself to those 2 things. There's so many other Japanese food out there that are just amazing. I'd recommend trying out other things like udon, soba, some eel, a lot of rice bowls. Actually, those are some of my favorite. The kare, which is Japanese curry. In terms of restaurants, just know that there is no tipping, so don't leave any money there because they're actually going to probably chase you down and say you left your money. Other thing is breakfast is not actually very big in Japan. Typically what I would do is just go to the nearby convenience store, which has amazing food, like really delicious food. And just go there. You can get a quick rice ball, some sandwiches, some coffee. So I highly recommend going there. The other thing I would recommend for breakfast is if you in a hurry as well, if you can find a bakery, those are amazing. Also there's your standard coffee shops like Starbucks or other Japanese chains, but there's also like McDonald's where obviously they would have breakfast options. One other thing is if you are taking food to go, just keep in mind that Japan is a very clean society and they want to make sure that it stays that way, right? So don't eat while you're walking. If you're gonna eat, go in a corner, stand somewhere. Typically, if you're gonna get something at the convenience store, you can eat it right outside the convenience store. That's perfectly acceptable. Also, do not eat on the trains. That's you're gonna get stares, and you don't want that. So, speaking of keeping things clean in Japan and staying that way, is the garbage cans. I know a lot of people say there's no garbage cans anywhere, and it's pretty much true. It's really difficult to find a garbage can over there. Quick tip for where to throw your garbage is, there are ways to find garbage cans. I recommend finding typically a vending machine. Vending machines will usually have their own, the actual vending machine itself, and usually right next to it there will be a garbage can specifically for whatever the vending machine is selling. Also, convenience stores, typically they should have garbage cans around there, and there's plenty of those around Japan. So keep that in mind. You don't have to always look around your garbage, but again, keep in mind that also don't litter around Japan, because they do work really hard to keep that place clean. Number 3, this will be easy. Getting around. How do you get around in Japan? Number 1 tip I can give is use Google Maps. Google Maps is by far the easiest way to get around Japan, at least for me, as far as navigating. If I'm just walking somewhere, I'm trying to find a restaurant, or if I'm trying to figure out how to get to a certain place by train, it'll tell you all that. So it'll tell you to walk to this, Shinjuku station, take it to Harajuku station, switch there, and then go to the next station. let's get into a couple more of the more complicated things. So using the trains. So here is a quick view of what the Tokyo train map looks like. I know it looks like a big web of just madness and craziness, but to be honest, it is. That's one. But two, it's really not as difficult as you may think. It's if you understand, just really is just a lot of transfer points. It's not that difficult. So if you just follow, and they're all color coded, so if you just follow a specific line and you know where you need to go, just really follow. How do you get there? From where you are. So find the nearest one next to you and just figure out where the transfer point is, and then you can make your way to your destination. And again, use Google Maps. Next is the cost of the train. Really, it's based on the distance that you travel. So it's not like a flat fare, and the ticket will be, is basically to the exact amount that you're going to be needing for that particular fare. So typically, if you go to a ticket booth, you tell it where you want to go, it'll automatically know how much you're going to need to get there. And then usually the ticket will be for that exact amount. And if you happen to go off route and go somewhere else, and you still and you're already in the train, you can go back to the ticket booth before you exit the next gate, at the train station, and adjust that fare as needed. One other thing, I know I said that was the last thing. If you're going to be using a lot of trains and buses in Japan, which, let's face it, you are, because it's the main mode of transportation there, I highly, highly, highly recommend getting a Pasmo or a Suica card. I personally like Suica just because that little penguin there, but I think it's also the more popular one than Pasmo. It's basically a reloadable card that you can get, and these are widely used across most major cities in Japan, so I can use it also in Osaka, Kyoto, Nara, a lot of the other places in between as well. Once you go really off the beaten path, you might not be able to use it. Note that in order to get one of these cards, it costs 2,000 yen, or about $20 US. 500 yen of that will be a deposit for this card. So technically, when you first purchase it and you only put 2,000 yen, only 1,500 of that will be usable. Because 500 of it is used as a deposit. And once you leave Japan, and if you decide, I don't want to keep this, you can go back to a ticket booth. There's one at Narita or other major train stations, and you can give this back, and then the machine will just give you your 500 yen back, and whatever funds available was remaining on that. Now, regardless, if you get a JR pass, I highly recommend getting one of these because, again, and I'm going to talk about the JR pass next. Essentially, the JR pass only works on JR trains. Now, in Tokyo, in that that map I showed you, they're not all technically JR lines. So there's going to be a lot of other private lines on that. So if you happen to be going somewhere and either the only path to get there is through one of the private lines, you're not going to be able to use your JR pass. Maybe part way there you can. So I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is the Japan Rail Pass. So the Japan Rail Pass is essentially a prepaid pass you can purchase in order to be able to travel through all the JR lines, depending on which type of pass that you purchase. First thing you need to know is you have to get it before you go to Japan. You cannot get it when you're actually there. You have to get it when you're here. And in order to do that, what you need to do is get what's called an exchange order. And what you do is you can either get it online, which I'll post a link below of where you can get it, or you can go to a local office. It's usually in most major cities, and I'll also post a link below for where they might be at. It's usually in the form of travel agencies. And you can get there on the spot, and all you would need, I believe, is your passport information, your travel itinerary, and just the money, I think, if I remember that correctly. And once you get to Japan, then you get your actual Japan Rail Pass at a major JR station. It'll tell you here, there's going to be instructions on this exchange order of where you can actually exchange it. And the Japan Rail Pass will look like this. A couple other varieties of the Japan Rail Pass, but there's the two biggest differences are, you get the ordinary pass or the green pass. The green pass is the kind of more, you get more of the reserved cars, like what they call the green cars in Japan. And I think, for me, the ordinary pass is just as fine. It works perfectly well. It's much cheaper. And you can also reserve your seats, but they say that the green cars are quieter, and you get more, maybe you might get more space. But I say, the ordinary seats are fine. They're quiet. There's a lot of space. And to be honest, if you get the green cars, or if you're trying to shoot for the green cars, they might not be as flexible because there might not be as available to ride on, or to reserve. So, I'd say go for the ordinary pass because you're gonna have the most flexibility. And to be honest, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with the ordinary cars at all. As I was saying before, the JR Pass, remember, if you're in the major cities like Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, you can use this too. So in order to use this, all you have to do is you're not gonna get an actual ticket anymore. Essentially, you're just gonna go to the side of every ticket gate area, and there's gonna be an office at every side, and you're basically just gonna show this like this, and they look at it, and then you just walk through, and you do the same exact thing as you're leaving the next train station or your final destination. So you're not actually purchasing a ticket. Like I said, not all the trains you ride might be part of the JR group. So I would still say get the Suica card. So at the end of the day, though, the real question is it worth it? It costs about $260 for 1 week, and for me, I would say, one, how long are you going to be in Japan? That's first thing you got to know. If you're only going to be there for a few days, I don't necessarily think the JR Pass is worth it because you're not going to make much use of it. I will say the best thing you can do is figure out, are you going to do longer trips? For example, if I wanted to go to Osaka and I was in Tokyo, that particular route right there is about $130 already in itself one way. So if I just go round trip, I've already pretty much paid off the JR Pass. So if you're essentially going to go pretty far, then yeah, I think it would make sense. But I'd say, do the math, figure out what your trip itinerary looks like and where you plan on going. Again, just go through Google Maps, figure out where you're all going, and then you can kind of pretty much add up all the fares that you might expect. And you'll see, is it over or under the $260? And then again, that's just for 1 week. So if you do 2 weeks, and if you're there longer, then again, just keep doing the math. So I can't tell you if it is or it is not worth it for you. So I think it'll be up to your itinerary. So a couple other things to note before I leave this subject, because I've been talking about it for a while now. The JR Pass, while it's very expansive and you can use it on all JR lines, there are a few Shinkansen or the bullet train lines where you cannot use this on. In particular, the Nozomi line, which is, I think, the fastest train between Tokyo and Osaka, I think, and which only takes like 2.5 hours between. That's perfectly fine. There are still other bullet trains that go between the two cities. In particular, I took the Hikari line a lot, and I think that was only about 3.5 hours. So you're not really saving that much more time. The JR Pass, again, it's not going to be active until you activate it at the actual train station when you exchange this. So, and I think you could even tell them, say, let's say you arrive today and you say, well, I'm not really going to be using it as much until 2 days later. Is when I'm using, I'm going to be traveling a lot. So I think, and I forget, and don't quote me on this, you could tell them and say, I want to exchange for JR Pass now, but make it active in 2 days or something like that. And I think, it's active based on the day, 24-hour daytime, not the actual time that you make it active, but rather the 24-hour cycle. So if it's already evening today and you want to exchange it, it probably might not be worth it to exchange it now and save it for when you have a full day of usage for it. So let's move on from the trains because that was a lot. Next is, where to go. It really depends, I'd say, what you want to see. If you are more into the city, you want to explore more of the city lifestyle, the high-tech culture, Tokyo is for you. There's so much things to do there. If you even have a week, you're not gonna run out of things to do. There's so many things to do, to eat, and explore. And while it is a major city in itself, there are still, shrines and temples all over the city, except it'll just be kind of surrounded, by the urban landscape rather than more off the beaten path and secluded. Now, if you are more into the whole rural or more, not necessarily secluded, but at least a little bit off the city path, then I would recommend checking out the Kansai region, which is, where Osaka, Kyoto, and Nara are. If you want a little bit of both, you can also do that. I will say it's, if you're only there for a few days, just make sure you plan your itinerary really well. It's easy enough to go from Tokyo to Osaka. Again, it takes about 3.5 hours, give or take, depending on which station you start and end at. All right, so as far as what to do in Tokyo, one of the best things that I've recently done there and that I can't even compare doing anywhere else is riding go-karts around Tokyo. I'm going to post the link below on MariKart, also the video of my video of my experience doing the go-kart tours. But what it is basically you can ride around the city of Tokyo, and through the highways even, wearing costumes while you're in go-karts, and those go-karts go really fast. And it's a great way to just experience Tokyo and explore, because you are actually driving through the city and you're going to see sights that you may not necessarily see unless you go there. So it's just a great way to take in all of the city. So amazing experience, highly recommend it. One thing to note, if you are going to do that, is you are going to need an international driver's permit, which I have right here as an example, and you can easily get this if you're coming from the US. You just go to like a AAA. All you need is your, I think 2 passport photos, your driver's license, and then the application. And I think it's only like $30 US, I forget. And you can pretty much get it there on the spot. Aside from the go-karting, there are plenty of things to do in Japan, or Tokyo specifically. And I'm just gonna name them off really quick because I've already been talking for a while here. So Shinjuku that is actually where the busiest train station in the world is, at least from what I've read. It's just really packed and congested over there, but it's a really great area to check out for shopping, awesome food, and also note that it's also the red light district, so it does get pretty busy and very touristy. Shibuya, Harajuku, and Omotesando, those are all really close to each other, and those are also really big shopping areas. Shibuya, just note, has the busiest crosswalk in the world, and Harajuku is more like, it's just like kind of one long street where they're gonna have it's super packed, and there's just so many, it's more like a teen shopping area. Akihabara, electronics and anime district, if you want to get some goods to bring back with you, some old nostalgic electronics. It's really hard to find unless you know the shops, because but you are going to find a lot of unique items over there. Tsukiji Fish Market, a bit of a touchy subject right now because of the move. If you do want to see Tsukiji Fish Market, it's no longer there, the original one. However, that was only the inner market that moved. So if you still want to check out all the restaurants, the markets, the original Tsukiji Fish Market, outer market is still there. And that's what usually I look at anyway, if I don't plan on going to the auction. So if you're just looking for the market, get some good, really delicious food, highly recommend. Still go to Tsukiji, but the outer market, which is where everybody goes anyway. And then lastly, it's not in Tokyo, but I recommend to people, if you're, especially if you're flying in and out of Narita Airport, is the city of Narita. It's actually really cool. It's very, it's not that large, but there's a great place for some last minute shopping for you and your friends. If and if you have some time before going to airport, check it out. There's things to do there. Also, they have some great food there. I really like the eel. It's one of their specialties in Narita. So if you have time, it's right by the airport, and if you have just a few hours, I'd say check it out. If you have an early flight the next day, perhaps even think about staying somewhere near Narita, because there's tons of hotels there. All right, last thing I'm going to talk about is what to do in Osaka and Kyoto area if you happen to make your way over there. Again, it's not very far from Tokyo, so if you have a couple of days to spare, I recommend checking it out. Osaka, if you go there, check out Namba Dotonbori area. That's where you're going to have a lot of shopping, but also a lot of street food, and they're all really delicious. Check out my video on that below, and you can kind of see where I looked around. Also, that's great for just shopping, nightlife. Kyoto, that is going to be more of your traditional old Japan, where you can check out there's just tons and tons of temples over there and shrines to see. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but the ones I went through in my videos are Fushimi Inari Shrine, which has thousands and thousands of torii gates, a lot of the small ones that you can walk through, which is really cool. Arashiyama, where they have the bamboo forest, and also a monkey park. And then lastly, I think one of my favorites in the Kansai area is Nara. It's a smaller town. I think it's the original capital of Japan, or one of the first ones. And it's just a really cool, smaller town compared to Tokyo and Osaka, and it's only about an hour away from either city. But the cool thing there is just they have like the largest wooden structure in the world, which is a Buddhist temple. Also, there's just deer walking around everywhere, which is just really, just a little different. And it's just, takes you away from the big city, and if you happen to be able to stay there for a night, great. And then if you do happen to want to check out all three, I'd highly recommend just picking one as your base. I'd recommend Osaka, just because there's a lot to do there, a lot to eat, and maybe if you want to go out at night, there's just so much to see and do over there. And it's only about an hour away to get to Kyoto from Osaka, and only about an hour away to get to Nara. So very easy to go to make day trips out of it. So that's it for this. I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully that helps you out in your planning for your trip to Japan if you want to go. Or if not, hopefully that will help make you want to go to Japan, because it is one of my favorite countries to go to. So that's it for this, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.